My name is Average Joe, and I'm a proud geek with expertise in movies, superheroes, and animation.
My name is Beef Pork Ribs. I'm a fine repository of esoteric knowledge, which I suppose most people would qualify as geeky. Though I dabble in many fandoms, my main areas of expertise are anime, movies, and Belgian comics, with a strong recent insurgency of D&D.
Our mission is to bring nerd and geek culture to the masses
by sticking it all under the microscope.
Welcome to the Bat Jar Podcast.
Movies, comics, graphic novels, TV, cartoons, animation, nerds or geeks, entertainment culture. Hear it on the Bat Jar, Nerdy Power. Nerds and geeks, come gather around the scene. Come and join us in the Bat Jar. Come and tune into Average Joe and his team. Lots of room here in the Bat Jar. When the newest nerdy news drops, these podcast pals put it under the scope. DC, Marvel, Disney, Star Wars, cinematic multiverses, Mega Christmas, Grinch's franchise. Hear it on the Bat Jar, Nerdy Power.
Hello there, and welcome to the Bat Jar Podcast, where we put nerd and geek culture under the microscope.
All right, I got my brightness up. I got my podcast agenda. Let's do this.
So, Beef Pork Ribs, we're here to talk about the year 2014. What were you doing in 2014? If my memory serves, you were getting close to finishing university?
Yes, 2014 is the day that my entire family exploded. It was a fun time. Not actually exploded, literally, but a bunch of them moved to different places. I was finishing university, taking a bit longer than I thought because of said family explosion and everybody moving everywhere. But
I thought you said your family moved everywhere in 2013.
You're right. Never mind. So that is the year I graduated from university and started working at a daycare.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's lots of stories you could tell us about that.
Probably, but I shouldn't.
For another time, perhaps.
Perhaps.
Did you spend the whole year working at the daycare?
Yes. Basically, I was not the whole calendar year. Obviously, it was that year, but I was I was done I was actually done my university degree, and at the beginning of 2014. And then I started working in the daycare while studying for early childhood education until the end of that. And then the summer of 2015 is when I moved away from the province. So, yeah, most of 2014 I was working in a daycare.
And 2014 was my last full year of university. I took courses in the winter semester, worked a job for the federal government in the summer semester, and then was in classes for the final time in the fall. So 2014 for me was kind of like my last hurrah as a student, and I'm so thankful that part of my life is over. I know some people really enjoy learning and going to school, but I was happy to be out of there, and needless to say, I'm happy those days are behind me.
University was a simpler time. I miss it.
You and I have different opinions there, but that's fine. If I recall highlights from 2014, I did my first kind of big road trip. I drove with some friends to a small town in northern Ontario called Hornpain. It took us about 10 hours from Ottawa to get there, and it was so remote that my cell phone didn't even have service.
Speaking as somebody who has done a road trip from Ottawa to California once and Ottawa to Edmonton twice, weak.
That's fair.
It was a family thing, though.
It was a highlight for the year for me. Remembering back on 2014. So let's just get right into it here. We're going to start, of course, with video games.
2014. Nintendo was coming back.
So I actually had some video game-related news items that we can briefly give cookies and nuggies to before we get into the top-selling games. For one thing, in 2014, Amazon purchased Twitch.
Yeah.
Is that a cookie or a nuggie?
I think that's a cookie. It helped the business aspect of Twitch and also introduced Twitch Prime, which was attached to Amazon Prime, which was a way to, like, if you had Amazon Prime anyway, you could donate your Twitch Prime sub, which was worth a certain amount of money, to some of the streamers, which actually helped the streaming community grow and helped streaming be like an actual viable option for income for certain people, which I think went a long way to help that.
Facebook acquired Oculus in 2014.
It's a noogie. Everything about Facebook is a noogie.
And Nintendo introduced the Amiibo.
It was a money grab, so I'll give it a thin noogie, but it was a cool thing for them to do.
Do they still use those things?
Yep, they do.
Okay, well, I think that was kind of around the time when like toy-based video games were popular. You had Lego Dimensions come out. You had the Skylanders. You had this
Skylanders, that was funny.
You had Disney Infinity. You had this thing with the amiibos. Like that was kind of like I guess one of the ways to actually get people to buy a physical product, I suppose, was buying toys that were connected to the video game instead of just the game itself, which at this point was becoming more and more digital.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it did kind of start off as an excuse to sell toys, but at the same time, it's something that worked out well, and that, yeah, like you said, was popular, even though it's an older thing than that, because, like, I can't remember what they're called now, but, like, Cyber Pets or something like that. It was, like, a website that started way earlier than that.
Webkins?
Maybe? That might be what I'm thinking about, but, yeah, there were other things that existed. But it was basically a money grab, so I'll give it a bat noogie.
All right, moving on to the top 10 best-selling video games from 2014. This year our list comes from Forbes, so that means it's probably a legitimate source. 10th best-selling game, Call of Duty Ghosts, which was the second best-selling game of 2013. So again, obviously must have done well enough that it continued to make business into the next year.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about these games a lot. And
Bat noogie.
Yeah, bat noogie. I don't remember Ghost being particularly iconic.
9th best-selling game, FIFA 15.
Yeah, I mean, I still give FIFA a sensation bat cookie because I like soccer, but it's not amazing.
I'll give it a bat noogie. I don't enjoy soccer games. 8th best-selling game, Watch Dogs.
I remember. Do you know this?
No, not
okay,
at all.
so it was, I believe, a third-person kind of. It was basically a thriller video game. You would like hack into phones and like go around doing missions, but I think it was also a third-person shooter. But it was mostly like a stealth mission conspiracy theory game. I remember it did quite well, and people were like impressed by the concept of it and the open mapness of it, but I think at the time people got very excited about it, but they didn't talk about it too much, although I do think that E3 either this year or last year they announced a sequel, so who knows, it might still come back. I'll give it a sensation bat cookie, because I do remember people making a big deal out of it.
Bat noogie for me. 7th best-selling game, NBA 2K15.
Bat noogie.
Yeah, bat noogie. 6th best-selling game, Super Smash Brothers for the 3DS and the Wii U.
So that would be for the Wii U. So that would be the current Smash Bros.
No, because there's one for the Switch.
Oh yeah.
So this game is literally the only reason I bought a Wii U.
I
saw that this game was coming out, and I saw that there were a bunch of exclusive characters that like Ryu from Street Fighter that had never been in a Smash Brothers game before, and then they were bringing back Sonic and Solid Snake and some of the characters who had been in like Brawl but not in the Wii version. And I was was Brawl was the Wii version. Sorry, people who were in the GameCube one but not in the Wii one. Anyway, and then it also gave you the potential to play with up to 8 people.
Yeah, that's true. That was a really big deal.
And you get them on some of those small maps, and it was just chaos.
Yeah, I mean, Super Smash Bros. Games, I love them. There are some games that I really like them, especially because, and I could talk about this for a long time, but what Super Smash Bros. Did for the game, like the fighting game genre, I think is something really incredible. It introduced more skill and less comboing, and more of a dynamic understanding of the game, rather than just being like even before it was 8 players, the standard was 2 players for fighting games. This even the original was at least 4, was up to 4 players, and it was exciting. It was like, yeah, you need to keep track of more than just the one guy in front of you, which made like cornering somebody a lot harder. And even though competitively it's still 1-on-1, it introduced a lot more fun and mayhem to the genre, and all the Super Smash Bros. Kind of done that, and especially the more recent one that they keep adding more and more characters. And this was kind of the beginning of like DLC for characters, I believe.
That's right. Yeah, you couldn't get characters like Ryu unless you got the DLC for them.
Yeah, and that it was one of the ways they sold amiibos was to get the character as well. But I still think, despite that gimmick, it was a good way to kind of enter into this and into the new Smash Bros, where they do keep adding characters. Like at every gaming event, Nintendo announces a new character for Smash Bros. It's great.
So big ol' back cookie for me.
Oh yeah.
5th best-selling game of 2014, Minecraft.
Yeah.
I've played this like once or twice, and I do not get the appeal.
Oh, I get the appeal. I just never had the time. Like,
it's like, let me just sit here for hours and just click over and over again on my mouse.
I'm going to be honest. If I wasn't into League of Legends at that time, I probably would have spent hundreds of hours on Minecraft. But anybody who has played League of Legends knows that it is a massive vacuous hole from which your life can never return until you quit. So unfortunately, I was too busy with that to play Minecraft much, but I do remember being very impressed with like just the scale on which people could build things, like remaking entire like accurate maps of like Halo games and stuff like that. I was always loved Minecraft and in its concept and in its application. Big old bat cookie for Minecraft.
You know what? And I'll give it some credit because I was having this conversation with, might have been you, might have been somebody else, about how a lot of modern video games are like they look so pretty and the graphics are so great, but the actual gameplay is kind of dull. And I think it says something about these older video games where the graphics are 8 or 16-bit, not very detailed at all, but the gameplay is so amazing that your imagination kind of fills in the gaps what you can't see.
And I think in that sense, Minecraft also opened up a lot. Like Minecraft and Little Big Planet especially are two games that kind of like opened up for a lot more of these imagination games, not only becoming popular but even mainstream. Like I think a lot of games like Terraria even or Starbound and those types of game only exist because Minecraft was able to pave the way for it, and I think you can't underestimate the influence it had.
So big old bat cookie.
Oh yeah.
4th best-selling game, Grand Theft Auto 5. Even though it was the highest-grossing game, I keep saying grossing, but the best-selling game of 2013, it's still near the top of the list for 2014 as well. So it clearly continued to be popular.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot. We covered it a lot, but I think that the other thing is that Grand Theft Auto since San Andreas had a very large and a very encouraged by the developer modding community, which, for those who don't know, mods are like when you change the base code of the game to like give yourself more health or infinite resources or things like that just make the game even more mayhemy and even less punishing. Like for Grand Theft Auto, you can do literally anything once you have infinite health on it. You could have all the cops of the city chasing you, but it wouldn't matter because even if they shoot you, you don't die. So I think that's also part of what the appeal was like it became limitless in what you could do.
The 3rd best-selling game of 2014 was Destiny. I remember this game had a really good trailer, and I remember being intrigued by that said trailer, but I never actually heard anything else about the game.
It was gorgeous. And it was a shooter, and that's all I remember from it. And they made a second one since, so it sold well and it did pretty well. But I don't think it has I think it was supposed to be two things. One was like an open world shooter, which I don't think are really that good when you get down to it, because it's like the point of a first person shooter is kind of to be more action oriented, and if you have like tons and tons of open space to use, you're not really getting much action. But also, the other thing is it was supposed to, like, kind of open up, like, more modern, like, open-world game, which I also don't think it did very well for. But it sold well, and it was really hyped up at the time, but I think it hasn't necessarily left the impact it thought it was going to leave, although I do know a lot of people who think very highly of it. So
I'm giving a 2-finger bat noogie.
2-finger bat noogie. I think I'll give it a 1-finger bat noogie.
2nd best-selling game, Madden NFL 15. So
wow.
This is the 3rd.
Yeah, 3 EA, good year for EA Sports, I guess.
It's in the game.
No,
Bat noogie.
Bat noogie.
And unfortunately, we had a little break there in 2013, but once again, the best-selling video game of the year is a Call of Duty game. This one is called Advanced Warfare.
From modern to advanced, then that's pretty much the only... I don't know, I feel like we've talked about this a lot, but it's
This one has
It's a Call
Troy
of Duty.
Baker and Kevin Spacey doing motion capture acting in it.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. I mean, I don't think that's why it sold well, but at least they were trying to do like new things and not just be exactly the generic game the other ones were, although it ended up being, I feel like all Call of Duty games kind of blend in together as like, it's the one game everybody gets, and everybody will play casually, but nobody really cares that much about.
But yet they keep buying the new ones instead of just playing the ones they already have.
That's because it's, I don't think that's the thing, is there's nothing inherently extraordinary about them, so you always want the new one to see if there's going to be something more, even though you know there probably won't be.
Well, I kept giving these Call of Duty games bad cookies for impressively being at the top of the charts, so I guess by that same logic I have to give it to one again.
Sure, a thin back cookie.
This is a thin station bad cookie. When we talked about video game news, I forgot to mention that 2014 was the start of Gamergate, which I don't know too much about. Do you understand what Gamergate is?
I have no idea what Gamergate is.
Apparently, it's like this online campaign of essentially female gamers being called out for being not real gamers, or...
Oh yeah. I'm guessing. I'm guessing. Let me just check something.
So this was kind of a surprise. I mean, I know that there was like the not a real geek girl kind of conversation that was going on as well, that girls were, on social media talking about nerdy and geeky things, and there was a presumption made among a lot of people that, oh, you're a girl, you don't know what you're talking about, or you're just, talking about these things to get attention for yourself, and it seemed like a very unhealthy conversation to be a part of.
Okay. So as it turns out, sirens were already over by then. It's unfortunate, but I remember this being a big thing in League of Legends. There was this team of gamer girls called the Sirens, and they made a lot of promos, and they were like, we are real gamer girls dedicated, and then they never got into any tournaments, and they never qualified for anything, and it became a huge meme, which probably didn't help any of this. But it's also, it was a toxic part of the fandom, and it's kind of unfortunate that it exists, but at the same time, I feel like there were a lot of misguided efforts to fix the situation the wrong way, like as opposed to saying that everybody enjoys video games in a different way and there's no right or wrong way to be a fan. Instead of doing that, a lot of women in the gaming community were like, no, we're just as good and we're going to prove it, and then unfortunately they weren't able to, and it kind of made it worse for them.
So I'm going to give this whole situation a bat nugget.
Oh, yeah, it's disgusting.
Thing. Some indie games from 2014 that were quite popular. Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft.
How is Hearthstone? It's Heart, isn't it? Pretty sure it's Hearthstone, not Hearthstone, but I could be wrong. How is that an indie game? It's massive.
Well, it was... I think, maybe it was on a list of games that were free to download. That's what
that might be it. Yes, because it is. It is a free to play. It's basically they took all of the characters from World of Warcraft and made a card game based around it, very similar to Magic the Gathering. You have your monsters you can place, you have spells that you can play, and you have a certain amount of energy per turn, and you're trying to beat down the other person's character. Basically, whenever the person runs out of health, you win.
Is it a bad cookie?
It's a bad cookie. It's still a very big competitive community. It's still very relevant. Less so than it used to be. It's gone down in popularity partially because they kept updating the game too quickly and being very, very meta-conscious. And like a lot of video games, unfortunately, started balancing the game for competitive play rather than casual play, which meant that a lot of fun things you could do with your friends kind of got dropped down and weren't, as accessible anymore. But still, it's a good game, and it was a massive game that you could play on just about any platform, including mobile, and that was a big appeal for it, was that you could play it on your phone.
All right, well, I'll give it a thin station back cookie. Shovel Knight, which a game you've mentioned on here before, did come out in 2014.
Shovel Knight is an excellent game. I feel like it paved the way for a lot of indie games actually starting to gain some momentum. Again, the advent of streaming as well as Twitch TV getting bigger, which it did get bigger under Amazon, and also this is These years are when like sometimes these games just pick up on YouTubers. There were a lot of gaming YouTubers at the time, and they were bigger than they are now. And like everybody was playing Shovel Knight, everybody was super excited about it, and it is a very good, an homage to like classic side-scrolling adventure game, and everybody was super excited about it. And it's about a knight who fights with a shovel and tons of other mystical artifacts that he can use. But, mostly the shovel was what they put the emphasis on.
And it had pretty simple graphics, right?
Yeah, it was like a return to like 8-bit graphics that everybody loves, like the retro feel of it, but it didn't have like all the clunkiness that old games had because it was very well developed.
All right, I'll give it a Bat Cookie.
Oh, yeah, Bat Cookie.
And then Goat Simulator. You've mentioned this before as well. This game actually came out in 2014. From what I recall you saying, you're just a goat?
You are an indestructible goat causing mayhem. Like, you can lick things to stick them to you, and sometimes you can, like, drag humans with you. In fact, there was an accomplishment in it in which there was this weird, like, and this is really strange, but there was a weird, like, pentagram on the ground somewhere, and if you dragged enough humans into it, they would die, and then you would become a demon goat. And there were trampolines to try to see how far you could bounce, and you could like blow up gas stations to send yourself and other people flying. It was a game that made no sense and was completely chaotic, but because of the fact that you could literally do almost anything as a goat, it just became very popular. There's a lot of spin-offs, like there's a pigeon simulator that came out too, frog simulator, but it's also...
I hate goats. So it sounds like this gets a big bat noogie from me. Maybe I'll go play the pigeon or the frog one because I can't stand goats.
I give it a Bat Cookie just because it was so funny and came out of nowhere, and yet everybody loved it.
So moving on to TV shows from 2014. Our most watched list this year comes from adage.com.
I like it.
And I'm very excited to say that the top 5 most watched TV shows were all like no reality shows. The closest we got was Dancing with the Stars, came in 6th this year.
All right, but let's be honest, 3 of these shows, well, we'll go through them and talk about it.
This is exciting. We've gotten to a point where it seems like reality TV shows are becoming less popular.
Yeah.
And so let's be thankful for that. But yeah, spoiler alert, in the top 5, 3 of them are NCIS shows.
Yeah.
So there's that. Interestingly, in 5th place, we have The Walking Dead.
Yeah, I mean, it was still good, and it hadn't, like...
But this would have been, like, its 4th season.
Yeah, season 4, I think. Season 4 or 5 is the season that everybody kind of agrees is when it started getting bad. Partially because they diverged from some major events in the graphic novels. I don't know the details, but I remember people getting very annoyed at it. But also... from watching it, I believe it was season 4 or 5, like the pacing of the show came to a grinding halt, and it was like, wow, we're doing this? Why? And it kind of hurt it a lot. But still,
comic book show, one of the most watched on TV. I'll take it.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, we can still give it a Bat Cookie for that.
4th most watched show was NCIS Los Angeles.
3rd best, highest was NCIS New Orleans,
which was a new show that year.
Oh.
I'm disappointed that Los Angeles is less watched than New Orleans because I feel like LA is a way more interesting place than New Orleans. Plus, you have Robin in Los Angeles.
Live and Let Die would beg to differ.
That's fair. So both get a Bat Cookie from me.
Both get a Bat Noogie from me. I don't understand why these were so popular.
In 2nd place, Big Bang Theory. So it crept into the top 5 last year, and now in 2014, it's the 2nd most watched TV show. I mean that's got to say something.
That's about the time where, what's his name?
Sheldon?
Yeah, the guy, but the actor.
Jim Parsons?
Yeah, Jim Parsons was, like, because I remember at some point he was making $1 million per episode or something like that. It was ridiculous, but probably by that point they were number 1. But, I mean, I have nothing against the Big Bang Theory in general.
Yeah,
I do think it got too big for its britches, but still good accomplishment, putting nerd culture out there a little bit more. I think it's still a Bat Cookie working its way up.
And NCIS, for the 2nd year in a row, is the most watched TV show in America anyway. It's just, I'm just amazed that the continual, like we're halfway through the decade pretty much now, are getting to that point.
Yeah.
And NCIS has been consistently on this list of most watched TV shows.
Especially when you consider like all the new shows that started, even the ones that started this year. I'm pretty excited about most of them, and like other years, it's like this show started. I'm like, man, how do people still enjoy watching NCIS when there's such better things out there?
Bat Cookie.
Bat Noogie.
Shows that started in 2014. We have Girl Meets World, which is a sequel to Boy Meets World.
I figured as much.
It's about the daughter of the main character from Boy Meets World. The big difference, of course, is that this aired on the Disney Channel and not on ABC, and you really feel it. Like, it feels like one of those Disney Channel sitcoms.
Yeah.
Boy Meets World, I liked it as a kid, and it had a bit of an edge to it. Like, sometimes it got a little serious. And
No, you can't have any edge when you're on Disney.
Exactly, and that's where, I mean, I tried watching the pilot, and it was clear, oh yeah, I'm not the audience for this show. And so what I ended up doing is just going on YouTube and finding clips where they, like, had characters from the original show on there. So, like, when his brother Eric comes in, or when Mr. Feeney shows up, I'm like, yeah, I want to see that. But I don't want to see these, like, preteen girls talking about going to middle school. No, thank you.
Yeah, no, that's Bat Noogie.
Bat Noogie. Gotham started in 2014. I actually watched this show during the first season, and then it fell off. I've spoken on this podcast before how I feel there was a missed opportunity with Gotham to make Thomas and Martha Wayne actual characters and not just bullet holes. And that's what they did. At the end of the first episode, they kill off the Waynes again, and it was trying to be, in the same way Smallville was trying to be a Superman show without Superman in it, Gotham was trying to be a Batman show without Batman in it.
And I feel like there is a legitimate way to do that, but at the same time,
Gotham City Central, the show about there's a comic book series out there called Gotham City Central, which is literally about the Gotham City Police. And so Batman is referred to, but he's never shown at all.
Yeah, but I mean, it also had, like, Gotham did have some good additions to it that kind of came in and reinforced some of DC's more clunky reputation a little bit. Like, even though you say it fell off, but it did still, like, get received quite well at first, and it was kind of like working towards DC being taken a bit more seriously again, especially for live action things, which, let's be honest, other than, you know, the Christopher Nolan trilogy had kind of needed it.
Yeah, so I give it at least for season 1, I give it a Thin Station Bat Cookie.
Yeah, I'll give it a Bat Cookie for what it still could have been at that point.
Outlander started in 2014. We've done an episode on this show, and I have watched the first 5 episodes. So, have you heard of Outlander before, I should say?
I have not.
It's about a woman from 1940s England that gets sent back in time to 1300s Scotland.
Oh, and she's a doctor.
Yes.
Okay, I have heard of it. Yeah, not interested in it, but I've heard about it.
It's like Inuyasha, except instead of feudal Japan and demons, it's Scottish people and no demons. But
that sounds a lot less interesting.
Well, depending on who you talk to. If you have any interest in Scottish and British history,
that's true.
It's very fascinating, and I can see the appeal. I'll give it a Bat Cookie.
I'll give it a Thin Station Bat Cookie, because yes, for the appeal of those time periods, but I mean, feudal Japan is much more interesting to me. I'm a bit biased.
True Detective started in 2014. I've only really heard of this show. I know it has kind of it changes the cast kind of every year, so it's every season is a mini series because it focuses on different characters.
That can be good, but I feel like you have to approach it with a very intentional kind of direction in order to make it work through several changes of character, and shows seldom actually do that.
So you're going to give it a...
Bat Noogie. I don't really remember it.
I'll give it a Thin Station Bat Cookie based on its reputation alone.
Fair enough.
The Flash.
Yeah.
Started in 2014. This show was very special to me because when it came on, it was the first time I remember watching the pilot episode of a show and coming back every week to watch each successive episode.
I don't think I've ever done that in my life.
Well, I had done that growing up as a kid and even through high school. But once I started really getting more involved in extracurriculars in high school and then going off to university, I was not following TV. But The Flash, because I'd gotten so invested in Arrow, they introduced Barry Allen on Arrow for 2 episodes, and they used that as the backdoor pilot. I was hooked on The Flash from the start. I still watch it. It's in season 6. there have been ups and downs like most TV shows. Like, it hasn't been consistently great, but I got to give The Flash a big old bat cookie.
Yeah, generally I think it's a bat cookie because I still hear mostly good things about it. I haven't watched it yet.
What?
I haven't watched any of the DC shows. You know this.
Star Wars Rebels came out in 2014. I've watched the first 5 episodes, and what I can tell, it's basically Firefly, but it's Star Wars.
I mean, I know there are some things in Rebels that are tying up loose ends of the prequel trilogy as well as the Clone Wars. Although now that the Clone Wars is getting completed, we'll see if that still matches up, but hopefully it does. But it seemed like it was good. It was the same feel and style.
I intend to finish it once I'm done Exodus 90. I thought it was really good for what I saw.
From what I've seen mostly just clips of it, but it seemed to be good, and the proof that Star Wars shows can work, right? And that maybe instead of making movies that are trying to revive what used to be, use the fandom that still exists to make side stories and not movie side stories.
If you liked Rogue One as a movie, then you'll love Star Wars Rebels. Big old bat cookie.
I'll say even if you didn't like Rogue One, you'll probably still enjoy it. Bat cookie.
Constantine started and ended in 2014. It got 1 season, which is to be expected when you're given a Friday night at 10 p.m. time slot.
Not just that, I think that also if they would have been riding off of the Keanu Reeves movie, which kind of bumped up the popularity of John Constantine as a character, it might have worked better. I know he's still in the other shows and can't smoke, but which hurts him a little bit. But I feel like he kind of needed to be riding on more popularity than what he had when they started as well. And even just inherently, John Constantine seems to just be a better side character than main character. I don't know if that's insulting to fans of him and of his comics, but I feel like he does a lot better as being a guy inserted in the greater DC universe rather than carrying his own show.
I'd agree with you. To me, he's a lot like a character like the Hulk, where he's not as interesting to me when he's on his own, but he's a great part of a group dynamic. And you made a good point, you brought up the whole thing that Constantine only lasted 1 season, got canceled. It aired on a network called NBC, but the CW, I guess because Warner Brothers Television was involved, they were able to bring back the actor Matt Ryan to reprise the role of Constantine on first Arrow and then Legends of Tomorrow, and now he's appeared in almost all the DC shows, which is great because his performance as Constantine was praised from the start. He's pitch perfect, dead on for the character. So it's kind of cool. The show didn't get resurrected, but at least his portrayal of the character got resurrected. So kudos to him. I don't really like that kind of show though, so the show itself gets a bat noogie.
Yeah, I think the show gets a bat noogie, but his character gets a bat cookie.
And BoJack Horseman started. I have not seen this yet, but I'm aware of it. It's a Netflix.
I have seen a few episodes, but also it is universally praised as being good. And I feel like what it is that it's the only. And I'm sorry to Rick and Morty fan, but the only kind of nihilistic, absurdist show that isn't stupid, that actually treats themes that should be treated with respect, and that even though it's tackling really heavy things and doing it in a kind of weird way, it also does so with reverent irreverence. They'll joke about just about anything, but still make it realistic enough that it will hit home that, this is a problem, which I think something like Rick and Morty just doesn't do properly, is that they'll hit on some important issues but then dismiss them and also not have follow-up, which BoJack Horseman does actually have character building that remains consistent and evolves throughout its show, and that's probably one of its biggest strengths.
I'll give it a bat cookie then.
Yeah, bat cookie.
And then shows that ended in 2014. So there aren't really all that notable ones. We only have 4 of them here on our list, and we've kind of spoken how this was that transitionary period in TV where a lot of big popular shows were ending, and there was kind of a void as streaming was taking over. So Community, first of all, ended in
6 seasons in a movie.
So is this the season that would have aired on Yahoo or whatever it was?
No, I believe that came after. I believe this is the first time it got canceled.
Oh, okay. I
But
never really got into it. I know people like it. I've seen a handful of episodes.
I haven't seen all of it, and I heard from many sources that there was a problem with the showrunner getting fired for one of the season, and it felt like a parody of itself because it was. And then the first 2 seasons, which I have seen, are excellent, and I think they're worth watching. And I think, if you like the show, you might as well commit to it. But at the same time, you need to go into it expecting it to be different from everything else. And that's kind of what its fame was riding on, was that it was different from everything else. And it kind of made it great. And it has a very good mix of nonsense with being very grounded in the characters and what they want. And I think that in that way it is a great show, because even though all these characters are massive stereotypes of what they are, it still works out.
All right, I'll give it a thin station bat cookie.
I'll give it a bat cookie, especially, I mean, it was the last season, so it was finishing its run, but I like Community as a show.
Sons of Anarchy ended in 2014. I've heard good things about this show. Apparently it's like a motorcycle gang version of Shakespeare.
Okay, I knew it was a motorcycle gang and that Ron Perlman was in it,
Yeah,
and that's about it.
Yeah. So, based on that alone, I got to give it a bat cookie.
Yeah, I'll give it a bad cookie. Ron Perlman is great, and I mean, it did have a good influence, it seemed, and kind of tried to tell good stories.
Legend of Korra ended in 2014. You spoke ad nauseum about it in our 2012 episode.
Yeah.
So it sounds like this was a bad ending, so I'll give it a bat nuggie.
Yeah, it's a bad noogie. It's a bad show. Wow. I hear the later seasons got better, and better antagonists mostly, but when your protagonist is still terrible, it's terrible.
And the Colbert Report ended in 2014.
Really?
So that he could take over the one talk show that I think he took over the one from David Letterman.
Yeah.
I thought it was a fun, he himself, of course, is playing it's kind of like American Dad. He's a real world left-wing political person portraying a right-wing political person. So there's some good tongue-in-cheek humor there, and he did bring I know he was originally a correspondent on the Jon Stewart show, and then he got his own spin-off. I don't feel like there's any show like that right now on the air that's that kind of political satire, so bad cookie.
Bad cookie, yeah.
Moving on now to anime from 2014.
Oh, I like this list a lot.
Well, this is where I start to get more excited talking about anime, because 2014 was the year I signed up for Crunchyroll and started watching subtitled, simulcasted anime. So
you finally joined us.
Yeah, so I was watching new shows as they were airing week to week, and I remember so many times episode ends and I'm like, what's going to happen? And having to wait a whole week to find out what happened next. It was painful. So. But it's okay. I'm here on the other side.
Yep.
So before we get into the top 10, I thought I would just mention some other anime that came out this year that didn't make the top 10. So you've briefly spoken about Space Dandy before.
Yes, I have.
I think
recently got the first season. It's great.
The only season.
Well, the first, yeah.
Oh, the first. Anyway. So this show's noteworthy because it was the first televised simul dub that was produced by Funimation. So literally, as the same episode was airing in Japan, an English dub was airing in the United States,
which is pretty impressive. And I think you've watched it, right?
Yes.
You'll agree it was a good show to start that with, because it's very over the top. It doesn't matter how literally you take things, because it's pretty silly. But I like it a lot.
But it's just, considering it used to take years for an anime to get licensed and dubbed into English, the fact that within hours of it airing in Japan it was available for watching English in America, that
is amazing.
And mostly this is done through streaming services now that these simul dubs are available. It's not really much as on TV, but it is incredible that there is such a short turnaround where you can consume anime in the way that you want faster than ever before.
And it is a huge boon for anime fans in North America, and it kind of proves how far it's gone. There's another thing in this list that we're going to talk about that I think also portrays that. But yeah, it's it's gone a long time from like the beginning of the decade. It was like Naruto was still a very big thing, and people who knew Naruto knew about that and not much else. And like, I feel like this was moving away from a time where people knew about anime through a bridge series, where people were like knowing about anime because anime was available. And, you know, again, Crunchyroll got a lot bigger. And I think Simuldub was a great step in that direction.
Tokyo Ghoul was a show that started in 2014 that,
Yeah.
from what I understand, had a lot of hype around it, and then it just got really bad or something like that.
I don't think it got really bad. I think that's another thing, that there were a lot of shows that got a lot of hype and then were just not, it wasn't that they were bad, but they didn't live up to the hype. And I think Tokyo Ghoul falls in that category. It was great, but it wasn't amazing.
Bat
And,
Nookie
like,
for me.
Yeah, probably.
And Bat Cookie for Space Dandy.
Yes, big old, so many space cookies. Bat Cookies for Space Dandy.
Nisekoi was an anime that aired this year. It was really like my first introduction to the whole harem anime.
You like that one a lot, don't you?
At the time I did. It was because it was my first like.
That's the one with the key, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So, okay. So some explanations. A harem anime is basically a romantic comedy anime show where there's one male character who has 2, 3,
20.
several female love interests, and the show intentionally like builds rapport between the male character and all these female characters, and so it creates all this shipping, if you will, of like, oh, should it be with this girl or that girl? And it was charming. I kind of like really got invested in it, and
I'll say like there are two that I tolerate because I don't like the genre generally. Nisekoi is one of them because it's cute and it is well handled, and the world only God knows, which I believe we talked about.
Yes, we did, yeah.
Which is hilarious, and that's why it works.
So nostalgia-wise, I'll give Nisekoi a Thin Station's Bat Cookie.
Yeah,
I don't
it was
like
cute.
He picked the wrong girl at the end, so it gets a Bat Noogie for its ending.
Okay, fair enough.
And then another show not in the top 10 that I thought would be fun, worth mentioning, is Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun. This is a show that aired in 2014. It's kind of like, we've talked about Bakuman on this show, where it was a show about manga writers. Well, Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun is about a high school girl who has a crush on a boy. So it's very typical anime setup, but then she finds out the boy she likes is a manga artist who draws a girls manga, like a shoujo romance manga. And even though he writes this series where, you know, he can really understand girls' feelings and whatnot, he's like a blank slate, stoic, like clueless individual. So the show is about her essentially getting a job working for his manga publication, trying to get closer to him and building the relationship. And all along the way, every episode kind of plays and pokes fun at different tropes of the shoujo genre of manga and anime.
Okay.
So if you know nothing about like the shoujo genre, this is a great show to kind of introduce you to the stereotypes and the cliches that are common in that genre.
I feel like in like most parodies, you probably want to be familiar with it before you hop into this. Probably get more enjoyment out of it.
And the theme song is a banger. It's great.
Oh, okay.
Bat Cookie.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
So now finally getting into the top 10 anime of the year from my anime list. So again, this is not some kind of professional list. This is based on rankings that users on that website have done. In number 10, we have Shiro Bako. Translated means white paper. Have you heard of this show?
Unless it's an anime about origami, no.
No, it is a show about making anime.
Okay.
I mentioned Bakuman just 2 seconds ago, but that's a show about people making manga. Shiro Bako is an anime about people making anime. So the main character is a production assistant at an anime company. And it kind of follows these 5 friends all trying to get into the anime business. One's trying to be a voice actor, one's trying to be a writer, one's trying to be an animator. The main girl's a production assistant. And so they're all kind of like following their, it's slice of life. They're following their journeys through the anime production industry, and it's just really cool to like get this behind the scenes look.
I enjoy how unafraid of doing that like the Japanese industry is, especially considering that it is like, when you get down to it, a very cutthroat industry. Like manga and animes, like ratings are everything. It's like very stress inducing, and they're not afraid to like shy away from it. They're not shying away. Sorry, they're not afraid to like show that, which is kind of cool. A little soul crushing maybe for people aspiring to get into the industry, but also realistic. You know, I feel like there's so many like stories and TV shows that happen like in the West, we'll call it, that are about like nobody's like making it into the business and being like all super excited about it and being like, you know, a miracle worker. Whereas this is like, no, they worked really hard and maybe it worked, maybe it didn't, and it was a stressful road.
So back cookie for me. Number 9, we have Fate/Stay Night, Unlimited Blade Works.
I'm pretty sure if you just say Fate Stay Night, Unlimited Blade Works, everybody knows what you're talking about. Who knows what you're talking about?
Well, so we've spoken about Fate before when we talked about Fate Zero, the prequel to this. This is Fate Stay Night is a video game that has 3 different storylines that, depending on the decisions you make, it kind of branches off in different directions. So Unlimited Blade Works is this TV show, I should say, is an adaptation of one of those story routes from the game.
Yeah.
And so if you've watched other Fate Stay Night shows or movies, like, there are a lot of things that are similar, but then there are, of course, things that are different.
I really liked Unlimited Blade Work. I actually watched it before Fate Zero. So there were a few things I wasn't picking up on, but it still works out well. The characters are well treated, and especially after having watched Fate Zero, I'm like, oh yeah, this is so cool.
And the fight scenes are incredible.
The fights, everything about the art and fight scenes in any of the Fates series are gorgeous and amazing. But I particularly like, we're not going to get into spoilers, but I particularly like the main character. Even though he's a horrible crybaby, what he is within the series is great.
Bat Cookie, for sure.
Oh, yeah, Bat Cookie. You know what I mean, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
In 8th place, we have Nanatsu no Taizai, which translates to the 7 Deadly Sins. I tried getting into this show, and the main character is one of those, it's okay, I'm just gonna grope women all the time. It's a trope in anime I do not enjoy.
The problem is he's a pervy old man who looks like a young boy, and that's problematic because the thing with a pervy old man trope is that he always gets his face kicked in, but then he was a young boy, so like, oh no, we're not gonna beat him up, and he's a better fighter than everybody. So yeah, it's very questionable. But
I know
the problem is all the other main characters are so darn good. Like, if you took him away, or even if you just took that character trait away from him, which is not central to his character at all, it is a great anime.
I can't get past it, unfortunately.
Fair enough, and I can understand that, but it is a great anime, great manga. It has very well-built characters, and it delves into writing OP characters well. And I am a little bit biased. There's a YouTuber I watch who has like a series called like OP Done Right, and he talks a lot about the 7 Deadly Sins, which has kind of influenced me that way. But like they are all really good characters, well written. They have understandable and relatable backstories and motivations. Like, it's very well written. It just sucks that the main character isn't quite that well written.
And this really starts the story of Netflix's relationship with anime. Netflix has garnered a bad reputation among certain anime fans because what they will do is they will pick up the licensing rights for shows, and instead of airing them weekly, so like other streaming services would, they wait until the whole season has aired in Japan, and then they dump it all onto Netflix at once to kind of match their whole binging model.
Yeah.
So what you have are fans who want to follow the show week to week like you would on any other streaming site, having to essentially either find illegal streams or unnecessarily wait until 3 months have gone by.
Yeah, it is something very irritating, but I think people are kind of used to it. Like, people who are getting into anime now are kind of used to it because that is the model that Netflix uses, and a lot of people are more used to that. But I feel like it's more like for people like you and I who were into anime before Netflix got into the market, who are like, no, every week is a new episode. This is how we do it. Like, because especially the break period in Japan is definitely not the same as like TV shows in the United States that have like this big break during the summer where nothing new airs. They don't have that in Japan. You do get a weekly show, especially like long-running series like One Piece. There's a new episode every week. This is how it works. You can follow it. But it does also like Netflix did start having better anime selection when they made their original series, and when they started getting exclusive licensing, it started being a bit more like, yeah, there is things for anime fans on this streaming service now. And I think even though it's not done well, at least it's there, and so people got excited about it.
So it sounds like you will give Seven Deadly Sins a bat cookie.
Yes, I will.
I'm giving it a bat noogie. Seventh best rated anime is Barakamon. This is no relation to Pokemon or Digimon. This is about an older like a guy in his late 20s who moves back to a small town for summer to get away from the busyness of life. And it is going to sound weird, but all I know about the show is that he befriends like this little girl who's like super energetic and loves life, and he kind of like learns to love life again through her.
Aw, sounds cute.
I know it was the only piece of trivia I have about it is that they cast an actual like 6 or 7 year old girl to play this little girl, and getting child actors to play parts well is hard because children are young. It's hard to get them to act well. But the clips I've seen, and of course I don't speak Japanese, but she sounds like an authentic child, and she sounds like it doesn't sound like she's a Peanuts character just reading words off a page. It sounds like she's actually like emoting and acting. So.
I mean, I'm not interested enough to actually watch it, but...
Yeah, neither am I.
Yeah, so bat noogie, but yeah.
Sixth most best rated anime, No Game, No Life.
The good ones.
I've watched this,
Look, isekais are very oversaturated right now, but I feel like this one had something to offer that was different and not generic, and that's why I liked it.
Yeah, it's about like this brother-sister combo who are really good at games coming into a world where all the major decisions in life are decided by playing games with each other. And so because they're super smart, they end up becoming very successful. There's just elements of like their relationship that I do not...
okay, yeah.
It just, without getting to like specific things, it makes me feel a little uncomfortable. And
they are very close for a brother and sister.
Yes, that's a good way. So overall, I got to give the show a small bat noogie.
I give it a bat cookie. It was fun, although it did get annoying at one point when it's like the way they would win some of the games. Some of them was great, very original, but it varied because some of them it was great. They were using good planning, knowledge of rules and stuff like that, and that was very interesting. And then there's the ones that they won because somehow they did something that was almost impossible, and that was kind of bad because the whole premise was that humans in this world don't have superpowers that a bunch of other races have, and by making those two characters almost superhuman, you took away the fact that they were supposed to be the humans winning despite their limitations.
Fifth best anime of the year, Parasite, The Maxim.
So super excited about this. I read Parasite, the manga, very long time ago. It was one of the first mangas I read online.
Because it's like from the 80s, right?
Yeah, it's really old, and I don't know how. I have no idea how this happened. How suddenly in 2014 it got picked up again, and people were like, "Yeah, this is a thing that needs to be produced into an anime." But I am so thankful that they did. I love it. I love the soundtrack of it. It's one of the things I listen to.
I've listened to the theme song for it a lot, but I've never watched the show.
Notice that we.
Yeah.
I recommend this show very highly. It's cute, it's wholesome, it's very gory. I know those things don't sound like they should work together, but they do. And it was a good story that finally got to be told in the animated world as opposed to just like in the manga, which makes it more accessible to people. And I think it hasn't lost anything of its strength, and it does. There's one character that gets kind of preachy about humans being a disease on the earth, which the manga kind of did. But at the same time, it's just good stories, good characters, and good character building, I think, especially the main character. Yeah, Bat Cookie.
I'll give it Thin Station Bat Cookie.
Dubstep in the soundtrack. Awesome.
Number 4, we have Haikyuu with 2 exclamation marks. This is a sports anime about volleyball. This one has a lot of female fans, from what I understand. I see people dressed up at conventions as like volleyball players from the team. I presume it's in the same vein as that Kuroko's basketball in terms of just the style?
It's a lot more team-oriented than Kuroko was. Kuroko kind of focuses on the two main characters, whereas this kind of, the team is the character more so. So it is better in that way, but...
Haven't seen it.
Yeah, I haven't seen most of it, but also, Hajime no Ippo is my go-to sport anime, and it doesn't live
I'll give
up
it
to
a
that.
Thin Station Bat Cookie just because I know it has a huge fan base.
Yeah. Oh, the next one is also a sports anime.
Third place, we have Ping Pong the Animation. I know you've spoken to me about this show, and it just looks... when I first saw clips, I'm like, this looks really poorly animated. I can't get into this.
It is very stylized, for sure. And the story, I think, is kind of... I don't know. I have a bias towards it because my little sister, who was living with me at the time, loved it. And we watched it together, and we bonded over it a lot. And every time I think about it, I miss her because she no longer lives with me, and I miss kind of the time we used to watch things together. Also... there's this old lady who ends all her conversation with this kid by saying "Love ya, Peko," and we still say that to each other. So I have a lot of emotional attachment to it, but I still think that it is a really good character study of a shy, talented guy trying to get out of his shell, and a super talented guy trying to live up to his potential despite life being hard on him. It's shorter than almost every other sport anime. It's self-contained. It has a good friendly rivalry in it, and I would recommend watching it if you have the time. But
sounds like a badminton anime I watched.
Possible, but it is true though. If you watch the first 2 episodes and you're like, this animation is driving me crazy, then yeah, don't put yourself through it. It's not worth it. But
all right, I'll give it a
I liked it. It was very stylized, and I didn't like the animation at first very much, but I got through it, and it's yeah, I can appreciate this. But I've always liked really clean line animation. Even the animation of Naruto Shippuden I hated. So yeah, it's an appreciation I'm getting more. Bat Cookie.
Second best high rated anime, Mushishi Season 2. The only real sequel on this list, technically.
It's not a sequel. It's just
continuation of the story.
Mushishi doesn't have a major storyline per se. It is very episodic, and it's very there are things that come back from earlier episodes.
This has been recommended to me before.
It is beautiful animation, a super relaxing soundtrack. In fact, I still it's listening to the soundtrack of this show is like walking through a beautiful rural countryside, which is what most of the anime is the main character walking through beautiful Japanese rural countrysides, and it's like fantasy, but not high fantasy. It's very, if you know anything about Shintoism and the fact that there's little gods or kamis kind of everywhere, and there's spirits kind of attached to everything, that's really what the essence of this is. It's very spiritual, but it's small things, and not big demon gods trying to take over the world and stuff like that. It's just there's little problems here and there that he kind of exorcises, but it's not causing major problems, and he's just keeping interesting things, and the whole thing is a very calming experience. It's not something I'd recommend to everybody all the time, but it is a very easy and good watch.
So I'll give it a Bat Cookie, yeah, for sure.
And yeah, if you get the soundtrack of it, download it and listen to it to relax. It's great.
And the best rated anime of 2014, very excited to talk about this, Shigatsu wa Kimi no Uso, or as we call it in English, Your Lie in April. Beef Pork Ribs, have you watched this show?
I have not.
You gotta be kidding. Oh, it is beautiful on all levels. Animation, music, story. The theme song, there's 2 opening theme songs, and most anime that get 2 parts, the theme song for the first part is always better than the second part, but the second one's still good. But the first theme song is so good, I pretty much know how to sing it in Japanese, even though I don't know what the words are, because I've listened to it so many times. It is amazing. I mean, it's a show about young musicians, a pianist and a violinist who gradually kind of get to know each other, fall in love. So if you're not into those kind of love stories, then it might not be for you. But it's very beautiful because it's both the main characters have suffered different kind of traumas in their lives, even though they're young. One of them was a prodigy who was kind of forced by his parents into the music and really lost all his passion for it. And then he meets this girl who's full of life and into the music, and he gets kind of brought back into it through her. And without getting to spoilers, there's a character in the show who has terminal illness, and so that
Two main characters low-key sound like Maka and Soul from Soul Eater, but in a storyline that wasn't really looked at in the anime, only in the manga.
So needless to say, it is a beautiful show. It will make you cry. It made me cry. I'm really excited that it's top rated on here.
Oh, I have a fiance who likes sappy things, so maybe I'll watch it.
There you go. There weren't too many anime movies of note in 2014. There was one called When Marnie Was There, which I think it got Oscar buzz. So, Bat Noogie.
Bat Noogie.
And then the only other movie I found that was worth mentioning that wasn't just like an extension of a TV show was The Last Naruto the movie, which I think is like the ending of the Naruto story.
I don't know. All Naruto movies are trash in my opinion, so.
I think this is the one that finally shows him like, you know,
becoming the Hokage.
Yeah, because
it was before Boruto started.
Yes, for people who don't know, Boruto is the son of Naruto.
Also the sequel to Naruto and awful.
So Bat Noogie?
Oh, Bat Noogie, yes.
And finally, we get to movies that came out in 2014.
I like your little bracket there.
Yeah, so I jokingly call this the year of franchise killers because there are a lot of movies that came out this year that killed some franchises. So we'll start, of course, with the top 5 movies from Box Office Mojo. So this is purely based on top grossing.
Yep.
I should note this year generally is actually a lower year at the box office wise. The highest grossing film of the year is less than the third highest grossing film of the previous year. So this is just a year generally where either there was only so much box office money to be had and it was shared more evenly between the movies, or there were just fewer people going to the movies.
I think it was just fewer people going to the movies, but also a lot of these, other than the ones who were supposed to be big things, ended up just being movies that were disappointments. And I guess we'll get into that.
Yeah, so starting on with 5th place, we have Transformers: Age of Extinction. This was the...
I don't remember anything.
This was the start. So like they had the first trilogy, and then this was essentially the start of a new trilogy. So this Transformers movie introduced Mark Wahlberg's character, Cade Yeager. And they established that time has passed between...
And his daughter and her boyfriend, that it's not creepy that he's older than her.
Yes, that whole thing. So there was a lot of potential with this film.
Sorry, air quotes on not creepy.
Yeah, so there was a lot of potential here, honestly, because they kind of established that in the wake of the first 3 movies, the humans have basically lost all faith in the Transformers, and they see that it doesn't matter who the Autobots or the Decepticons are, like they're all like people need to go. And so you really see Optimus Prime in this movie like lose all hope in humanity because he sees some of his fellow Autobots being destroyed by humans, and human beings try to create their own Transformers basically because they want to control it all. There's potential in there, but it's just mired with a whole bunch of mindless, weird, silly things that didn't need to be in the movie. The whole final act is in China just so that they could get more Chinese people watching the movie. There's really bad product placement, and it's a bad interpretation of a lot of Transformers lore. Bat Noogie for me.
I don't remember it, Bat Noogie. I also did not see it, but still.
In 4th place, we have the Lego Movie.
Good movie now.
Yes, I was very pleasantly surprised when I saw this film. I didn't know what to expect. We've talked about the Lego movies ad nauseum on the podcast, but P4 Gribs, you weren't part of those conversations, so if you want to throw your Lego brick into the conversation, now's your chance.
It's great. Chris Pratt was great. Really, just it was surprising in all the right ways. It's good that it launched the other Lego movies that all were also good too. So yeah, big old Bat Cookie.
3rd place, Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Some people say this is like the best, like in terms of just quality filmmaking. Some say this is the best MCU movie.
Oh.
Like as a film, I remember I actually got to see this film 2 days early because I won a contest that Ottawa Comic Con had. So I actually went to like on a Wednesday to like a press screening for the film before it came out. And I don't know if it was because I was seeing the film early, but I was genuinely like really surprised by how well the movie was, how good the movie was.
Yeah, like a lot of especially the older MCU movies, I don't really remember them that well. I don't think I saw this one in theaters, but I do remember like watching it and being like, yeah, that was a good movie. That was better than I thought a Captain America movie would be. I also was kind of unaware of Obviously, I knew who the Winter Soldier was because there were trailers. There were a lot of people talking about it, but I didn't really know about it. So it kind of like, it was interesting, and I liked it.
It was cool because with the Captain America movies, they kind of evolved from being like war movies with nostalgia to this was like a 70s political thriller, and they even had Robert Redford in there as a good callback to that era of filmmaking. So big old bat cookie for me.
Yeah.
Second place, The Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1.
It's another Hunger Game movie.
It's the third one to make the list of top grossing movies.
I'm surprised it was that. I'm surprised, legitimately surprised, though, that it beat Captain America and Lego Movie. But I feel like possibly because it was part one of the finale, that's why. Like, people were like, yeah, we got to finish this.
Yeah, we're finally getting towards the end of these part 1 and part 2 things.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, Bat Noogie. And the highest grossing film of 2014, to my surprise, Guardians of the Galaxy.
I went to see this movie 3 times in theaters.
I saw it the one time. I did not enjoy it all. Like, I enjoyed it, but I enjoyed Captain America way more.
Sorry, no, that one I only watched twice in theaters. It's the second one I watched 3 times. I liked it better than Captain America. I liked what it was doing. I still have a lot of love for the Guardians of the Galaxy.
See, I don't enjoy classic music. Like, I don't say classic music, but like, I'm not a huge music person. So like, I feel like there's a whole element that these films have built to themselves with the music and the choice of the older songs that I just can't appreciate.
I do quite enjoy the music from it, but also the fact that it was very much of its, I don't know, it was a good time capsule, which it was before the 80s were a big thing with, like, now we have like Stranger Things and a lot of other things. So it's like, look how good the 80s were, and they weren't that good, but still. But like, that one was done with purpose, and yeah, it was also honestly a breath of fresh air for me with the MCU, and I think what kept me invested in it, because The Winter Soldier was a good movie, but it didn't really pique my interest again. So I was like, this could be good. But then Guardians was like, yeah, no, let's see where this goes.
Well, I remember so much of the marketing around the movie was like, yeah, it's a movie about a tree and a raccoon. Like, it's like we're going all the way out there. And kudos to Marvel, they really like went on a limb and took a gamble on some really obscure characters that I'd never heard of before the movie had come out.
What else had James Gunn done before that?
He was a writer of like the live action Scooby-Doo movies.
Yeah, like, so also they were taking a chance on him, which paid off in the end quite well, actually.
So, yeah, even though I don't love it, I will admittedly give it a bad cookie. It set up a lot of great things for the MCU.
Oh yeah, bad cookie.
I just wish other MCU movies would stop trying to be Guardians of the Galaxy.
True. Or other movies generally, actually.
6th place this year, Maleficent. Didn't see it.
Didn't see it.
Bat Noogie.
Yeah. Bat Noogie.
7th place, X-Men Days of Future Past.
I was very excited for that. It was a good X-Men movie.
Finally.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, it was Days of Future Past was
probably
great.
still the best X-Men movie.
Yeah,
it's
probably,
the one
actually.
That feels the closest like an actual X-Men comic.
Yeah, that's true. And I did like that First Class and Days of Future Past were kind of, and technically Apocalypse did do that, but poorly. They were following like the major seasons of X-Men and Wolverine, where the first one was against Magneto, and kind of had, it had the city? Genosha. It has like Genosha, and then the second one was with the Sentinels and that entire crisis, and then the third one was actually around based around Apocalypse, but much better. It was a good show. But I was excited about Apocalypse, especially after Days of Future Past, and I was excited for what it could do, and kind of like the soft reset it gave as well.
Yeah, we'll get into
pretty
that.
cool.
We'll get into that later.
Yeah,
Bat Cookie for sure.
Bat Cookie.
Dawn of the Planet of the Apes came in 8th place this year.
So that was the first of the new ones, right?
It was the second. So the one that did not have James Franco in it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that was good. I like that one. That's probably my favorite of the new ones.
There's like whole scenes where it's just the apes talking in like sign language to each other.
Yeah.
I was really impressed. I was like, this is incredible.
Yeah, no, that's the one with Gary Oldman then.
Yes.
Yeah, no, love that movie. It was great.
Big Bat Cookie.
Big Bat Cookie.
Big Hero 6 came out this year. I enjoyed it. I was kind of looking forward to it. I'd never really heard of Big Hero 6, so I looked it up before the movie came out, and I was like, oh, this is some obscure Marvel Comics thing from the 90s. Seems interesting. And then sure enough, the Disney version is very watered down and more for kids. And
Yeah, I went to see this. Funny enough. So I was working at the daycare that year, and I had basically split shifts, so I did like before and after school programs, and I went to see Big Hero 6 in between my shifts, alone, in a theater. But I didn't regret it. It was a good movie. I really wanted to see it with my brother, because it was like advertised as a brother movie. It turned out to not really be, which I was kind of bummed out about, but it was good. It was better than I thought it was going to be. Baymax was adorable. I feel like the team could have been worked out a little bit better.
Yeah, and
they
there's a
kinda
TV
didn't
show
really
that's a
do
sequel
much.
that gets into that, but
And like it had the surprise villain that wasn't a surprise to anybody really.
yeah.
But yeah,
Bad Cookie.
Bad Cookie. Oh yeah, Alan Tudyk is in it, so
And
automatic Bad Cookie.
we start talking about the franchise killers of the year.
Ooh,
The
yeah.
Amazing Spider-Man 2, or as I like to call it, Spider-Man 3, but again.
I did not think it was that bad in the sense.
It's like Iron Man 2, but worse, because you introduce a villain, he gets knocked off the table early, and then you go off on all these different tangents trying to set up future movies that it's like, oh, we're definitely going to make these.
Yeah, they did set up. They had way too much on their plate, which was unfortunate, because I feel like that was one of the good things about the first Amazing Spider-Man. There were problems with it, but it was well self-contained. This one was definitely not. And like I understand, Sony was panicking. They needed to hold on to
They were developing
Spider-Man
a
as
Black Cat movie, a Sinister Six movie, an Aunt May movie, the Amazing Spider-Man 3. Like they were like planting seeds for so many things. They even had B.J. Novak from The Office show up as Alistair Smythe to try and set up the Spider Slayers for a future movie.
Yeah, and none of it ever amounted to anything.
It did the death of Gwen Stacy in a fairly faithful way.
Yeah, actually, that was quite good.
But other than that,
yeah,
the costume was cool. That was probably the best.
Yeah, there were good things in it, but they tried to put too much. Like Osborn didn't have to be in the movie at all.
No.
Like
His whole thing with his parents,
yeah, no, there were so many things that did not need to be there, and just reminded you of better Spider-Man movies.
Bat Noogie. Godzilla, the 2014 Godzilla.
Oh, that was. Can we just not talk about it? It was bad.
All right, Bat
Like,
Noogie.
it was just bad.
The 2014 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I never saw it.
This is another example of fans freaking out about stuff because, like, at one point it was just gonna be called Ninja Turtles, and they're like, oh, they're aliens or something, and like people freaked out, and then like, all right, fine, but they put Teenage Mutant back into the title.
The thing I remember most about this movie was how the CinemaSins guys called it that they were gonna make this movie. Like, it was in one of their movies, one of their videos on Transformers. They were like, "Oh, next Michael Bay is gonna use Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles," and I remember everybody was being like, "Oh my gosh, they saw it coming," and I was like, "Yeah, let's see how it goes."
The Turtles designs took a lot of controversy. They were like big
I don't mind
and
that.
Overcomplicated, and
The character design was good, but they didn't do anything with it.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
I'll give it a Thin Station Bat Cookie. I enjoyed it.
Sure. Megan Fox shouldn't have been in it, though.
Hobbit: Battle of the Five Armies.
Bat Noogie.
Bat
It
Noogie.
was
Is this the final Hobbit?
Yes, it is. In their defense, in the book, Bilbo was just passed out for the entire Battle of the Five Armies. So, like, the fact that this was a movie around that was, to me, very weird to begin with. And so, yeah, beyond all the other problems that The Hobbit had, it was really weird. It's like, this is literally something that happened off screen and nobody knew anything about it.
Interstellar came out this year.
I did not watch that.
Neither did I.
It's,
Bat Noogie.
yeah, there are other good sci-fi movies that did what it was trying to do better.
Frozen was the 20th highest grossing film of the year. Considering it came out in 2013, that's noteworthy.
Yeah, again, I worked at a daycare. The amount of times I heard Let It Go that year was enough to make me hate that movie forever.
300: Rise of an Empire was finished in 27th place at the box office this year. This was meant to be like a sidequel to 300.
I don't understand why they thought that was a good idea.
I went and saw it. It was Bat Noogie territory.
I never saw it, but I felt like it was like if you were going to do that, you had to either do it at the same time when you had the hype going, or keep exactly to the same style.
Yeah, because it was like 7 years later.
Yeah,
so it was a long time. Edge of Tomorrow finished 31st at the box office that year.
That was a decent movie.
Yeah, it was
like
one of the few American adaptations of a light novel that was received well.
Yeah, no, like Edge of Tomorrow, like it wasn't amazing, but it did what it was supposed to do well, and I liked it.
Yeah, me too. Bat Cookie.
Then again, I didn't like it enough to see it in theaters.
Neither
but yeah,
did
Bat
I.
Cookie.
Yeah, I saw it on like an airplane years later, so that's probably why it didn't make money. People like us were like, yeah, whatever.
I feel it also built up more hype after it was out of theaters.
Right.
Like on DVD.
Night at the Museum, Secret of the Tomb, finished 46th at the box office this year.
I have not seen it and don't care to. I don't know. I
it's
like
the-
Night
it
of the
was-
Museum the first two, but then after that I was like, why are you still doing this?
I put it on here mainly because it was the final film Robin Williams was in,
Fair enough.
and I was like, emotional attachment, got a Bat Cookie. It just for
Okay,
that
we can
alone.
give it a Bat Cookie for Robin Williams.
The RoboCop remake came out.
Also have not seen that one. Don't care.
Finished 56th at the box office.
Good lord.
And they were definitely setting up a franchise, and it's dead.
Yeah, no.
59th at the box office was Dracula Untold.
Was that part of like them trying to set up with the Godzilla movie, the like
They were,
Paramount Monster Universe or whatever?
this was the first attempt at starting a Universal Monster
Universal,
universe.
yeah.
Like
Bad.
literally the final dialogue is some guy going, "The game is on," or "The game is afoot," or whatever.
It did not work.
Yeah.
Bat Noogie.
Bat Noogie.
I haven't seen it, but yeah.
And The Expendables 3 finished 81st at the box office.
Proving that Sylvester Stallone doesn't know what quit while you're ahead means.
Yeah, I've heard for years they've been talking about like an Expendables movie that would like bring
Oh,
together a bunch of
God,
female
please
action
no.
heroes.
But you'd need... Actually, the problem is Kill Bill already exists.
But Uma Thurman could be in this movie,
Yeah, I know, but it would basically be...
and Sigourney Weaver, and
The problem with them, like those actors being together, which would probably make a very good movie, is that they're all from such diverse kind of like backgrounds in the movies that they did that they wouldn't work together as a unified universe. Whereas like all the guys in the Expendables at some point played mercenaries, and so it worked for all of them to be mercenaries together. You know,
yeah, Saving Mr. Banks came out
my
this
mom
year.
liked that movie.
Finished
I've never watched
82nd at
it.
the box office. I haven't seen it yet either.
Don't think I will.
I will at some point. Bat
Okay,
Cookie.
I'm giving it a
And
2-finger Bat Noogie.
finally, in 87th place, Anchorman 2: The Legend continues. I was very excited to see this, and I
I feel like that was like popular enough.
well, maybe it's opening weekend, but it just didn't live up to the hype. The first Anchorman is like it's so quotable and random that but then they just tried too hard to like be that and more. That there's a couple of funny moments, but
I feel like the fight scene is the thing that you see the most quoted about it.
yeah, it's
Because they literally have everybody.
oh,
in
it's
it.
like Kanye and Will Smith and Liam Neeson and John C. Reilly and
Isn't
Jim Carrey's there.
Yeah,
and-
isn't Clint Eastwood in it too?
I don't think so.
I thought he was.
But like it's the fight scene's amazing. If you could just watch that, that'd be great. But yeah, the movie just feels like I'm sure they would have wanted to do more with those characters, but it killed the franchise because it didn't do well.
yeah.
So this kind of brings us to the end of talking about 2014. A very interesting year, like in terms of movies. We saw a lot of franchises get killed off. TV, we saw reality shows start to become less popular.
And also, I think the one thing to highlight also about Guardians of the Galaxy, it was like, hey, look, Marvel can do anything and people will still watch it. Like, not to put down the movie, it was a great movie, but like, there was definitely an aspect of that, of its success, was that people will watch any MCU movie.
Yeah, and with anime becoming more popular, with simulcasting, people over here were aware of new and original shows as they were airing, so that's probably why so many original shows are popular on that list.
Yeah, I do feel, though, that I didn't talk about this, but I do feel it kind of downgraded people who watch more classic shows, because now a lot of fans are fans through simul-dubbing and don't really take the time to experience the classics, which I think is kind of unfortunate, but hey, it's life.
And video games, Call of Duty is still champion.
But Nintendo, with the Wii U, and like they're starting to get in there a little bit, and I'm glad we talked about some of those indie/free-to-play games, because
Yeah, and
they definitely
Minecraft
started
was a
being
huge
bigger.
thing too. So
Oh yeah.
anyway, very interesting year. we don't have any mail, so you need to remind people how to get a hold of us.
All right. If you want to contact the show with a question or an idea for an episode, you can send us an email at
batjarpodcast@gmail.com.
or you can tweet us at
The Bat Cookie Jar.
We're available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcasts. Share our posts on Facebook and make sure to like our page because we want everyone to join us inside the Bat Jar.
We have a YouTube channel, so if you want to listen to our shows that way, you can. We want to thank everyone for listening and being part of the show. If you've enjoyed this episode, maybe give it a rating on your podcasting app. Give us a little review. That helps us show up in lists that people are they're searching for a new podcast. And if they, if you guys give us reviews and give us 5 stars, then we'll show up and we'll attract more listeners to the Bat Jar family.
Comment on what you were doing in 2014.
Yeah, there we go. That's
Why
fun.
not?
And
We'll read them probably.
eventually.
He'll
yeah.
read them.
And so, yeah, we're going to continue with Memory Lane until next year. We're kind of turning towards the middle of the decade now. So come back to the Bat Jar podcast next week when we talk about nerd and geek culture from the year 2015. And until that time, I'm Average Joe.
And I'm Beef Pork Ribs.
Catch you on the flip side.
The mysteries of the universe are upon you.